At long last, I get to pay a long overdue visit to an old friend. Greetings, mortals! I'm Warevo, and this is Spyro the Dragon. Developed in 1998 by Insomniac Games and published by Universal Interactive, who also published Crash Bandicoot and, due to a partnership with Konami they struck back in December of '99, also helped co-produce The Grinch. Yeah, maybe it's not the best sign, but if Ape Escape sparked my love of PlayStation, Spyro the Dragon cemented it. The Spyro the Dragon series, like Ape Escape, Crash Bandicoot, and Gex, came late in the PlayStation's life cycle. But Spyro had arguably the biggest impact, developing a strong cult following that still continues to this day. I was one of those people who fell madly in love with Spyro instantly. Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage was the game that cemented my love for the franchise and made Spyro a close, lifelong friend. This game follows the adventures of a young, headstrong dragon named Spyro as he travels across various worlds Super Mario 64 style, collecting treasure and freeing dragons who've been trapped in crystal by the game's big bad, Nasty Nork. And yes, it's canonically pronounced Nasty Nork, not Gunasty Gunork, and I will die on that hill.
I'll take that question.
What about this Gunasty Gunork character?
Look, right there! He said Gunasty Gunork. That means that's how it's pronounced, and no one in the entire game pronounces it any other way.
Nasty Nork, Nasty Nork, Nasty Nork.
Totally not harping on a distant relative's insistence on starting an argument over that. Anyway, let's start off with the very first thing you experience when the game starts up. The music. The soundtrack for all three entries in the original Spyro trilogy was composed by none other than Stuart Copeland. And if that name sounds familiar, he was the drummer for the 80s British rock band The Police. Stuart Copeland's soundtrack fits the worlds and levels perfectly, and can elicit any number of emotions from excitement and anxiety to comforting and calm. Each hub world has at least 3 main levels, a boss level, and a flight level. And in each world you have to complete a specific objective before the balloonist in that world will let you move on to the next world. Whether it's rescuing a set amount of dragons, collecting a specific amount of treasure, or recovering a certain amount of dragon eggs from thieves. Each hub world has a different theme, like military, winter, magic, redneck swamp, or the industrialized factory setting. The individual levels also have their own unique themes, sometimes sharply contrasting with the theme of its hub world, offering a great deal of variety and visual appeal. While yes, the graphics are blocky, as is typical PS1 style, they were still amazing for the time and are even less blocky than the typical PS1 game, and Insomniac Games improved it slightly in Spyro 2. The best part, though, is that it's free from the standard tank controls that plagued PS1 games at the time, like the Phantom Menace or that game which shall not be named. It does have minimal analog support, allowing for the use of the left stick for movement, but this limited movement can sometimes cause problems if you're trying to run along a narrow ledge, so I recommend using the D-pad. Controls aside though, the only real issue you'll have in this game is the camera. The camera in this version has an active and passive mode, and while they both function properly in this version, unlike the reignited version where they forgot to program them, mainly because they had to start from scratch because they didn't have access to the original source code, the passive camera is sluggish, and turning it around takes longer than it should. Now, with the camera being your worst enemy in this game, that means the rest of the game is perfect. Right? You have 2 primary forms of attack in this game: Fire Breath and a charge attack. Burning flowers and charging through enemies is so much fun. And there's nothing more satisfying than slamming through a line of metal chests or mowing down everything in your way. The main enemies in the game are the various Nork minions that you come across in every level. The larger ones can only be defeated using your Fire Breath, while the smaller ones you usually have to charge. And if you forget that, the dragons will remind you over and over and over.
Ah, I forget.
The dragons are also interesting. Rather than taking their time to come up with several different varieties of dragons, presumably because the PS1 disc will only hold so much, they chose to recycle the same 4 or 5 designs multiple times. Sadly, they also choose to do the same thing with the voice lines as well.
Thank you for releasing me. Thank you for releasing me.
I don't know. I guess I just ran out of ideas or something. The boss levels are always more difficult than the main levels, which is rightfully so, and have some of the toughest enemies in the game. Though of all the enemies in the game, none has given me quite so hard a time as these dogs in the Toasty level. I have lost so many lives to these dogs. There is a neat thing with the Toasty level though. When you first go to the portal, the dragon's mouth will be closed and you can't access it. The dragon station there will tell you you have to complete another level before you can enter.
The artisan's boss is through a portal in the dragon mouth, but you are not yet ready, Spyro. First you must complete one of the other artisan lands.
But really, completing a level just means leaving one of the main levels through the portal at the end and not through the exit level option in the pause menu. Once you do, the dragon's dialogue will change.
The artisan's boss is through a portal behind me. You can challenge him now, if you feel you are ready.
This is the only time in the game, to my knowledge at least, where a dragon has a different line of dialogue depending on certain in-game conditions. As you progress through the game, the levels will get more and more difficult, sometimes forcing you to rely on your own wit to figure things out, like this monstrosity of a jump in the Haunted Towers level. This is the one thing in the whole game that took me the friggin' longest to figure out. And this is the one and only thing I was never able to do in my original playthrough of the game. Why? Well, let's play Angry Video Game Nerd for a moment and rip this section apart. First off, to get to this platform over here, you need to perform a very specific jump that has to be perfectly executed. You have a very narrow path to take while performing a supercharge through a tight space. And you have absolutely zero room for mistakes. But once you do get it right and finally land on the platform, then you have another problem. See all these suits of armor here? There's a wizard up at the top who brings them all to life. I've timed it, and you have roughly 10 seconds to make it to the top before you get your head bashed in, and another suit of armor blocks your path forward. However, the suits of armor will automatically reset if you go back out to where this dragon is and wait a few seconds. Doing all of this perfectly is just barely possible, but when you do, you get an awesome reward that makes it well worth it. A super flame power-up that lasts for the rest of the level. I wish it lasted for the rest of the game, but I guess that would have been too OP. Understandable. And I know what y'all are thinking, but what about the treetops level? It's the most notoriously difficult level in the whole game. Listen, don't get me started. I'm already incensed from that stupid Haunted Towers level. The biggest problem you'll have in this game, though, is the flight levels. Each one has 4 items you have to collect, requiring 8 of each item. At face value, it's not that hard. But here's the catch. It's timed. That's right. They give you just barely enough time, and you have to do a perfect run if you want to pass it. You mess up even just a little bit, you miss even a single item, or make one wrong turn, you may as well just scrap that whole run and start all over. And y'all know how I am with time limits and working under pressure. These levels took me longer than the entire rest of the game combined, and actually caused me to break a controller out of rage. Not my USB controller I was using for this playthrough, mind you. No. One of my actual PS2 controllers. The one I just had fixed. I hate the flying levels in all 3 of these games. They're all a load of crap. When doing the wrap-up for the 100% playthrough, I decided to fire up my PS2 and pull up my original save file. Yes, much like Ape Escape, I still have my original Spyro the Dragon save file. Unlike Ape Escape, however, I was never able to finish this game as a kid, due to some sections of the game being too difficult for me back then. Haunted Tower. So I decided to take the opportunity to finish up the game properly, recording the final bits of footage for a full 100% run on my old, original save, so I can show the results in this review. Why? Because each game in the Spyro trilogy has a special reward if you 100% the game. In this game, it allows you to access the level Nasty's Loot, which is the flight level for the final hub world. Unlike all the other flight levels, however, this one isn't timed, so you can take your time and explore at your own pace. Also, unlike the others, however, you do have a flight ceiling that limits your movement. This ceiling gradually increases as you unlock more doors, until you finally reach Nasty Nork's throne room. Spyro the Dragon is the first game I ever heard of to have a completion percentage of over 100%. Spyro 3 does it too, but Spyro 2 doesn't. Spyro 2 has a different bonus for reaching 100%. What else is there to say about Spyro the Dragon that hasn't already been said 100 times? Is it flawless? No. But it's still an awesome game that gained a huge cult following that remains strong to this day. As someone who's been part of that following since childhood, I can confidently say that Spyro the Dragon is one of those games that left a very positive impact, cementing Spyro as a dear childhood friend. A friendship that still remains strong to this day. And with the Legend of Spyro series, Skylanders, and Spyro Reignited, suffice it to say, Spyro fans aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And with rumors of the legendary, long-awaited Spyro 4 reportedly in the works, it looks like our dear old friend may, at long last, finally be getting the attention he deserves. I'm Will Ravo, thanks for watching, and God bless.